Hi, everyone, and thanks for joining us today. We're going to have a really amazing topic today with some really great guest speakers. This is going to be my first Facebook Live in English. I've been doing the ones in Spanish for Latin America for the last, I don't know, 8 weeks or so. But we have some really interesting topics that we want to cover right now, and it's about science. The journey of a scientist, it's a difficult one, finding grants to support the research and travel and the resources needed to get the job done. There's a passion, and they're trying to gain as much knowledge as possible to make an argument. That argument can be for conversation, for awareness, change in laws, in some cases even political views for a common good. There are many fields of science, but some that really need, as divers, some that really need awareness is shark conservation. That comes very close to my heart. I spent 10 years in Galapagos as a naturalist guide and as a dive instructor. And I've seen a lot of the beauty, but I've seen a lot of the atrocities from shark finning. Whereas scientists are really great at collecting data and the research, they need the storytellers, and the filmmakers are those storytellers. Together they can share with the world and create the awareness needed so that we can make decisions and we can understand what's going on. What I want to do is I want to talk to two people that have joined forces in order to be able to tell that story from really great research. The first person I have is Randall. Randall is from Costa Rica. He's a biologist. He's known throughout his career as a turtle and shark conservation leader. He comes from the University of Costa Rica in 1988. That's where he graduated from. And in 1997, he founded Pritoma, which is a nonprofit organization which focuses not only on sea turtle conservation, but the impact of commercial fisheries as well. And he stumbled onto shark finning issues in 1997. So let's welcome Randall real quick. Hey, Randall, how are you?
I'm good, and good afternoon, everybody. Thanks for being here. It's a pleasure.
I really appreciate you taking the time and talking to us about your struggles, your objectives when it comes to shark conservation, what you've done, what you have accomplished. And the next person I want to bring on board is Luis Javier, who's a close friend of mine. Luis Javier is an instructor with SCI TDI, but he's also an amazing photographer. He has won the BBC Wildlife Picture of the Year not once, but twice. The first time was in 2013, and the second time was in 2016. He's also the manager of a very large resort in Cancun, Aquaworld, as well as an explorer and an expedition guide on numerous projects. So, Luis, how are you? How are things?
Hi, thank you for having me on board.
Well, first off, how are you guys doing? How are things where you're living? Randall, you're in Costa Rica. Luis, you're currently in Mexico, correct? How are things over there? Let's start with Randall.
Well, Costa Rica did pretty good at during the beginning of this whole crisis. But now we're having some trouble. We're having some spikes. But in general, the country's economy is still trying to build up. And there are strict, measures if you're going out, because, lockdown isn't really a long-term option. But yeah, we're struggling here, but the economy, at least the basics are going. But of course, what we really need is, tourism to come back.
Sure.
But we're working on it. We need to be safe, first of all, of course.
Right. Yep. 100%. Luis Javier, how are things in Mexico, particularly in your area? You guys really depend on tourism.
Cancun, especially. I am in Cancun, so we 100% depend on tourism. Cancun is about 1 million people population, the city. So a lot of people works not directly from the tourism, but everything starts from the tourism and starts goes down to the rest of the population. So at the moment, we're actually struggling with the money, with the works, with the business. Fortunately, tourism starts to return slowly. Hotels are reopening right now in July. Some of them in August. So some of them are around 20%. So personally, our diving operation will reopen next Monday. So. But only at 30% of our capacity, and it's hard, because we can't take all our employees back on board at the beginning. So it has to be gradually, So
right. Yeah.
Tough, but we'll get in there.
You will. Randall, has this affected your research at all, or explain the impact that COVID-19 has had on maybe your research or just in science in general, as far as
Well,
ones that are not focusing on the virus?
well, we've been right now hit really, really hard because because of the shutdown, obviously, and we had two very important scientific expeditions, extremely important. Right now we're promoting the creation of swimways between these very important aggregation sites of hammerheads. We know they aggregate in Galapagos and in Cocos, and we know there's a corridor there. And we were about to do two expeditions, one from Cocos Island to Galapagos, and one from Coiba, Panama to Malpelo, Colombia. And we were going to deploy receivers at deep seamounts to study the movements of these sharks between the seamounts. That's like the cutting edge science. We were bringing scientists from the region together to do these expeditions. And now they got pushed back to next year. So we're going to be doing them still in April or May. But, for the policy work we do, which is the other leg of our work, it was extremely important to do these research expeditions. So, that also then holds us back on the policy work we're trying to do, which is to get these corridors or these swimways created. But, again, it was a slowdown, but we're getting back on our feet and we're going for it next year. So
is that the only project that you're directly involved in that has been put on hold? Are there other things that you are able to do, locally, or is it complete shutdown for you, Randall?
Well, it hasn't been a complete shutdown because, operating a small NGO, I have funds to operate usually 1 year or 2 years into the future. So at least my research on the coast, which is the other part of the work I do, I work in a project we call Integrated Coastal Sustainable Development. So we work in communities that save sea turtles. We bring volunteers over to these communities and we generate economy. People stay in the homes and, we work with the locals saving sea turtles. We also study manta rays, sea turtles, shark populations, reproduction sites in the coastal waters. So at least all that research is still ongoing. But one of our problems is easily 30% of the money we raise a year comes from our volunteer program, people who pay to come see the sea turtles. And this year, without the volunteers, well, we've seen 30% of our budget just go away.
Yeah.
And that's being a huge problem for us because for the last 15 years, these sea turtle projects have been self-sustainable. They pay for themselves. And this year now we have all these expenses, biologists to pay. And it's like, well, and just imagine our other burden right now. The Costa Rican government only allows access to the beaches from 5 in the morning to 8 in the morning.
Oh, wow.
And the turtle season started today or yesterday, July 1st. So, they're saying, well, you guys can get a permit to count turtles in the morning, count tracks. So at least we can have monitoring of nesting activity, but we can't be out there finding turtles and tagging them and, doing the work we usually do. So it's, we're adapting. That's, part of what you have to do in this business. And hopefully I can keep on raising money for the research part of the work we do.
So things are still rolling. It's just a completely different pace. And at the moment, a lot of the major projects are simply put on hold. Luis Javier, you go on a lot of these expeditions and you go trying to basically mirror and follow what scientists like Randall are doing. And then your goal is to capture that and be able to tell the story so that the viewers, the people back home, can actually be impacted by it. How does that work? Or you're obviously on hold too. You're not going anywhere.
Yeah, actually, I stopped. I should be right now in French Polynesia, documenting the founding of groupers. But I'm chatting with you guys, which is also nice.
Yeah.
Well, basically, me as an underwater photographer and filmmaker, what we do is we do storytelling. I like to do it in two ways. First of all, in all my work, you will see that I mix a little bit natural behavior with trying to put it in a picture like a piece of art. It's not only what's happening in the moment. Maybe it's a manta ray getting clean, or maybe it's a shark eating or getting clean or whatever, some behavior. But I always try to put this artistic touch with photo techniques, So when people see these things, you create emotions on the people. So at the moment somebody has an emotion, an empathy with an animal, first of all, they know that exists. You can't worry or try to protect something you don't even know that exists, And after that, you need to tell the complete story, because this is an animal you love, you fall in love, it's very charismatic, it's beautiful, it's whatever, whatever it makes you fall in love with it. But at the end of the day, he lives in a national park, for example, of Cocos in Costa Rica. Yes, but the national park, actually, it's very, very small. So you are in the national park of Costa Rica seeing these amazing sharks and schools of hammerheads and whatever, but then you go out on the boat and on the distance you see a line of fishing boats, just waiting for the sharks to actually cross. So what is the meaning of having this national park if the shark swims away a couple of miles and then it's going to be catch, So all these stories, the scientists, they do an excellent work getting the data and getting the measurements and the rules they have to put to actually preserve these places and these animals. Unfortunately, their expertise are science, not communication. Not everybody can have a camera. Not everybody can actually go into social media and communicate this to everybody. So along my career, I found out that scientists all over the Mexico and many places I've been, they great on doing science, and they communicate within a circle of scientists. It's very hard that that information goes out into that, from that circle into the public, and into the public. I mean, our viewers at the moment, they're scuba divers, so they have some relation with animals and with national parks, etc. But doesn't mean that somebody that never dived before can do something, something like changing the way you eat, that like selecting the kind of fish you eat, the kind of plants you eat. Just by changing the way you consume, then you can make a great impact, So what I like to do is communicate and what things that people like Randall does to everybody, So not only scuba divers, not only scientists can actually do something, but the general public as well.
It's about giving them a platform. And Randall, I'm sure you like that because that allows you to focus on what you do best. Tell us real quick, how did you get started with this? What made you say I want to know more about sharks? What was that moment?
Well, to answer that question, I have to go back to my very early origin. See, I'm really a sea turtle biologist, and I was studying the impact of fisheries on sea turtles. And then the fishermen on the coast, like especially the shrimp trawlers, would tell me, Randall, you give us so much trouble, but you know what? Longliners are catching a lot more sharks than we do. I mean, turtles than we do. And, and you're not giving them any trouble. So we thought, so we looked at the longline industry, and we looked at the disappearing leatherback turtle, which is practically extinct already. And we thought, well, let's take a look at this industry. This is 1997. And we obtained footage of a boat catching a leatherback turtle, actually two. And at the very end of the video, there was a bonus. My fishery observer said, hey, Randall, check this out. And he showed me that horrible video, the blue shark being dragged up on the boat and the fins hacked off. This is one of the first known videos of shark finning live. And of course, we seized this opportunity and we exposed to the world what was happening. And that was a career changer for me, because then we figured it out. Why are the leatherback turtles disappearing? Not because the Taiwanese fleets here are catching turtles to kill them, but the Taiwanese fleets here are finning our sharks to extinction. And in the process, they're also wiping out the leatherback turtle. It's an innocent bystander. It's collateral damage. And this is one of the main points of the work we do. This is not a turtle problem, and this is not a shark problem. This is an overfishing problem with ecosystem impacts. And that's the way we got to tackle it.
Yeah, I don't know if you know this, but I spent 10 years in Galapagos before I moved back to the United States between 1996 and 2006. And, the islands of Wolf and Darn, we'd be up there every weekend. And
Nice.
It was amazing, some of the things that we saw. It was funny how these illegal fishing industries, they figured out what our itinerary was. And on the off chance that maybe we had a 10-day trip instead of a 7-day trip, and we'd show up on a Wednesday instead of a Friday, it was like a field day because no one was there. You know, when the tourist boats were there and we were diving, you know, we were essentially protecting the islands of Wolf and Darwin because we were there. Just our mere presence was there. But the moment that we left, these industrial fishing boats would come in, drop the long line, and yeah, it was very impactful to me as well. So I appreciate a lot of what you're doing. What are the basics of shark tagging, and why is that important?
Well, I don't know, Javier, do you want to answer that one, or me, or?
Well, in the projects that I've been with Randall and with other scientists in Mexico, in Riviera and Baja, what I learned from them, maybe Randall can explain more than that, but the reason why is that you need the data to actually know the key areas for the sharks. For example, you need to know what time of the year they're actually reproducing, where they're having their babies, where are the pathways they're using to navigate, to have their pups or etc. They have areas, cleaning stations. So all these areas are key areas. They're really important to protect, to create national marine park reserves, because sharks will go there, and if those areas disappear, their sharks will disappear with them as well. So as scientists, what they do is, with the shark tagging, that there are many types of shark tagging, they actually getting the data they need to actually present them to the government and to push to actually protect an area or to control the fishing industry during certain times of the year or during certain areas. Am I right, Randall?
Excellent response. Yeah, that's exactly it.
Randall, have you shifted some boundaries of conservation areas based on your research and data that you've presented to governments in Costa Rica's example? Have you been able to change, like, say, this needs to be expanded because XYZ creatures live in this area?
Well, so far we've been able to participate in the creation of 2 coastal marine protected areas. One, a 20,000 hectare, which is like a 200 square kilometer area for the Caletas Wildlife Refuge, and then another additional 150 square kilometer area. But these are not no-take areas. They're multiple use, because back when we started working in these areas, you know, they're very important sea turtle nesting beaches. There's also small-scale snapper fisheries in the area, and the big problem we had was shrimp trawlers moving in. And when the shrimp trawlers move in, they kill all the turtles. You know, you'd get up in the morning and you'd see a dozen dead turtles on the nesting beach. And then the fishermen would go out fishing and they wouldn't be able to catch any snapper. And we actually did the estimates that one shrimp trawler in one day would catch as much snapper as 12 snapper fishermen in a month. So of course it was devastating having these shrimp trawlers there. So back in the early 2000s, 2006, 2009, we created these 2 areas basically to kick out the shrimp trawlers and to work with the small scale fishermen on promoting a sustainable snapper fishery. And we're still at it. And we recently, we publish papers and we work with these coastal communities to show that, you know, how these ecosystems have changed since the shrimp trawlers have left. And we're seeing better snapper catches, for instance. Now, my dream right now is to be able to influence Costa Rican policy in the high seas. If you look at Cocos Island right now, which is our jewel, you know, Costa Rica should be taking better care of it. Right now, we don't allow any fishing within a 12-mile radius of it. That's only 2,000 square kilometers. You look at Malpelo, Colombia, they're protecting 27,000 square kilometers. Galapagos, they protect 160,000 square kilometers. Revillagigedo is like another 160,000 square kilometers. And Cocos Island, only 2,000 square kilometers. We really need to step it up. And right now we're working really hard. Javier has been a part of this process. We're working really hard to provide the information of the movements of these sharks so that Costa Rica and Ecuador will sit down and protect the waters in between these areas, because that's what hammerhead sharks need right now.
Yeah. Yep. Luis Javier, what can a diver do? I mean, I'm a scuba diver. I love to dive. I love going and looking at sharks. I have a huge passion for that. I like going on trips to places that have sharks. But that's about it. What can I do from I'm locked up in my house. We're all quarantined. What can someone do to help? Is it just sharing things on Facebook, or is there anything we can do?
What I realized after being in many expeditions with scientists, I think the key factor is to change our consumption habits. You know, you need to. I've seen divers, honestly, that they go diving with sharks here in Mexico, and after being diving with sharks, and that great, they go out and they go for cazón empanadas, which is like a quesadilla, but with shark in it. You
Oh
know,
wow!
and like how come you can be going diving with sharks and then go and eat the sharks, you know? And they say, well, this is a typical dish in here. Yes, but come on, you're actually promoting the fishing of it, you know? So you can't be a shark lover and have necklace full of shark teeth, you know?
Right.
I've seen many divers with shark teeth, you know? If you find it in the bottom of the sea, it's okay. But if you find it, if you buy it in the middle of the street, it's a shark that has been killed to eat and to make this kind of things, you know. So changing our consumption habit. I mean, Randall can explain better what the shrimp fishing industry does, what the long lining industry does. So if I'm gonna eat a fish, for example, I'd rather go to a local fishing community where they use hooks or they go down with an harpoon and they catch it, because that's sustainable. Because they're not gonna get a bowl with 10 tons of fish, you know, they actually fish what they need for a community. So, and it's the same with the plants, and it's the same with the animals. I mean, you need to reduce your consumption of red meat, for example, you know, and many other things. So we need to start better look where our food is coming from to actually trying to make a change, you know. That's my belief.
Yep, yep, I agree 100%. The moment that you start buying these items, whether it's a plate or a dish like shark fin soup or jewelry, it could be anything from black hole. You are helping creating that demand that's out there. Randall, explain to us how you tag a shark.
Okay, well, there's several tagging techniques and several types of tags. So I'm going to start with our basic tag technology, the one we use all the time, which are acoustic tags. And an acoustic tag is only about this long. You know, it looks, about that thick. It's a little like tube. And what it does is it emits a sound at 69 kilohertz. So it's inaudible to the human ear. And we need to attach this thing to an animal so that, so it creates this sound, this ping as we call it. And then we need to listen to this. And to listen to it, we have to deploy listening stations or a receiver that will listen to this tag when the animal that's tagged will swim close to the receiver. And so the trick is, how do we attach these tags to the sharks? So one way is externally. So what we do with the external way is you attach this transmitter to a tether to a cable, and on the other side of the cable you have a dart, a stainless steel dart. So we need to put the stainless steel dart under the flesh of the animal. So we do this by means of a pulse spear. And to do this, you need the animal to get really close, within only 5 or 6 feet of you, only like 1.5 meters or 2 at the most. And you learn with time that it's not just a matter of chasing the sharks. You got to wait for the shark to get in the right position. You have to pounce on it. And of course, you get better with time. So you have to jump in and, pounce on it, put the tag in with the pulse spear, and then the animal will swim away. And what you're going to see is the cable and the tag dangling on the outside. It's really, really, really fun. It's like hunting. It takes you back to those days. And of course, you're doing research. It's super, super fun and challenging. The other way to tag the animal, yeah, go ahead.
Randall, what sharks are you talking about? Because every time I try to get close to a shark, the moment I exhale, those guys are going in the opposite direction. I mean, whale sharks were a lot easier, but I mean, what shark specifically are you talking? Because it's got to be a lot different tagging a hammerhead versus tagging maybe a whale shark or a nurse shark, right? So
Right. Well, it has. It's been quite a challenge, and it's been, you know, like the very beginning of 2004. Okay, our main interest was hammerhead sharks, but hammerhead sharks are very skittish. And you're right. The moment they see bubbles, they swim away. So then you end up learning that you have to hide so they don't see you. If you see the shark coming your way, you hold your breath, which goes against all the rules of scuba diving. So you hold your breath so he can get in close enough. And then when they're close enough, you jump on them and you pounce on them. But on the very first early days, it was like, who's going to tag the first shark? And what if we poke it and the shark turns around like a dog, you know, and is going to go and bite whoever attacked it? So it was a little scary. But then we started getting our tags into the hammerheads. And yeah, you learn the technique. And then it was like, well, who's going to tag the Galapagos sharks now? And these can be pretty big sharks. And they're not as skittish. They actually let you get in pretty close.
Yeah.
And then again, that same fear. Well, who's going to tag the first one? And then we started tagging the hammerheads the Galapagos sharks, and the fear came down. And about a year and a half ago or two, it was like, all right, now who's going to tag the tigers? And these are big, sweet babies. And of course, whenever a tiger shark swims by, it's all these red flags, and everybody's all scared. Tiger, tiger. And well, on one of my last expeditions, I tagged 4 tiger sharks on one expedition. So, you know, that was like really, really cool. So, and the tiger sharks also.
I think
I'm still here. And the tiger sharks let you get in really, really close. And I think one of the things too is they're not used to being approached. So they're swimming down the reef, and most of the other sharks and the animals swim away. And then here comes this huge creature with a pole swimming towards, straight towards them. And that kind of like throws them off. And then when they feel the poke, they just take off. Yeah. So far, so good.
Good.
I think there's a small clip of Randall tagging a shark. I don't know. Maybe we can.
Brandon, can you show us a clip of Randall doing some shark tagging? While she does it, I'll tell you a quick story, Randall. This was here it goes.
There you go. See, so that's a tiger. See, they don't even get scared when you're approaching them. They're completely the contrary of any hammerhead shark.
Are you on Scuba or a rebreather? Or snorkel?
No, this is on a Scuba. This is on Scuba.
Oh, wow.
See, you get that close and poke it, and then see, they just take off.
Yep. Awesome. I'll tell you a quick story. We on the liveaboard that I worked for, at one point we had a shark research team that came over to tag the whale sharks in Galapagos, and they had successful shark tagging that was done in the Caribbean, off of Utila, that area. Apparently, the skin of the sharks in Galapagos might be a little bit thicker because the water is so much colder. I'm not sure. They weren't sure. This was a long time ago. Regardless, the harpoon, the darts, were not penetrating through it. It was just bouncing off. And these are the same ones that they used 6 months prior in the Caribbean. So that was the conclusion that they reached, that it needed to be sharper. It needed to work on this kind of skin as opposed to this kind of skin. Anyway, so we had a group of scientists, but we also had people that paid for the expedition, and these were, the tourists that come to dive, take the pictures, and all this. And one of the guys said, I want to try. I want to do the harpooning. We've of course changed how we do things because of this one incident, but it is a funny incident. Now keep in mind, we're in a national park. These are whale sharks. We try our best to respect the marine life, social distancing. but now we're tagging them, so we have to get up close. The goal here is to do the research and grab the data so that people like Randall can tell us, what is happening, and Luis Javier can tell the story. So this guy was determined to get at least one hook into the whale shark. Now, I'm the naturalist guide. My job is to make sure everything's safe, everyone comes out of the dive at the end of the day, and that the researchers are able to have their whale sharks in front of them. So I try to find the whale sharks. I spot it. There we go do the tagging. So this one situation happened. We're just having a bad luck. The harpoons keep or the darts. Is that what they're called, Randall? The darts.
The dart, yeah, the dart on the tip, yeah.
Keeps falling out. So I turn around and I see this guy, literally sitting on top of the whale shark as if he was riding a bull with the dart, trying to hammer it in with the housing of his camera. I see this and I'm just like, oh, this is not good. To make matters worse, behind us was another boat with actual tourists that were seeing this whole thing happen. And they're just like, what is going on here? I mean, all they saw is this guy just sitting on top of the whale shark, riding it, going like this. They didn't know what was happening. Anyway, we obviously had to have a briefing after that and say, like, we can't be doing this sort of stuff. The guy apologized, and the scientists said, you know, from here on in, it's just us that's going to be doing the harpooning. No one else can do it. It's fine. You guys paid for the trip, and you guys, supported it. But this is why we can't have nice things. But anyway, needless to say, we changed a lot of procedures after that time. But anyway,
right. If I can add a little bit to that incident, I would just like to add, for instance, we do similar trips like that on the Sharkwater. We do what we call citizen science trips, and usually every trip has 3 or 4 scientists because we're out there with a strong focus on science. But literally speaking, these trips are funded, by the citizen scientists, who are basically divers who pay the fee to come, which is like on any regular dive trip, they'd be paying the same price. But the bonus is they come to see us work. Right. So they come as citizen scientists, and for instance, they're not allowed to manipulate the animals or whatever, but hey, we catch a turtle, we bring it on board, and then of course you have close access to the turtle, you can get pictures. If we catch a shark, so we can do a turtle tag and install it by surgery, then you get to see that procedure. And you don't get to manipulate the animals, of course, because these are very delicate matters, and these are very invasive techniques, and accidents can happen. So you're using hooks that can hurt the animal, so you have to be very careful, and so you have to follow all these protocols to make sure you don't hurt the animal, but you have to keep aware of that. You are using a very invasive technique, and so your citizen scientists have to be aware of this too. But of course, you have to minimize these impacts, and of course, the citizen scientists, their bonus is they get to see, they get to be close up, but of course, they don't get to actually manipulate or be in close contact with the animals, because that's a job reserved for the scientists.
100%. Yep. Lisa,
now that Randall mentioned the surgery procedure, it's completely different what he just showed with the tiger shark. I think we got a picture with what they do in the surgery, one of the sharks, and I want to explain how is this being done, because it's a whole adventure. First of all, you need the right permits to do it, and then you need to go on the back of the deck of the boat to actually fish for a shark.
Right,
they use special hooks, so actually they can remove it easily and don't damage as much as possible the shark. But then when you got a 2 meters, 6 feet or 7 feet shark, and then you grab it, and then you need to put it back on the deck without harming the animal. It's a challenge, So, in these programs that they do with the scientists programs, the citizen science, what we do is we help them to actually bring the shark on top of the deck, and then you need to actually turn around the shark, like upside down, like you've seen in the picture. Because otherwise the shark moves a lot, and man, they're strong, man. It's an animal, just muscle,
So what exactly is going on here? What are you doing? You said surgery. What does that mean?
You explain it, Randall, please.
Okay. Well, as I mentioned, we use those external tags. Those external tags will eventually fall off. Usually they'll fall off within a year and a half or 2 at best. So the battery life of these tags depends on how often they ping. So when we're using these external tags, we use tags that are going to ping every minute, and then they're going to last for about 2 years. About basically as long as they're going to before they fall off, right? But we can program these tags to ping every 5 minutes, and they can last up to 10 years. So what we do with these kind of tags is we have to catch the animal, like you see here, this tiger shark or silky shark, or hammerhead, whatever. We bring it on board, and we perform a surgery, and we implant the tag subcutaneously. And then we have to sew it up 2 or 3 stitches. And then that way, this shark, if it's not caught by a fisherman, is going to carry this tag for the rest of its life. And then we can, for instance, we have sharks that we've tagged like this 7 years ago in Cocos Island. And when we go download our data, we're still getting hits. So this way we get long-term data on the movements of these animals. And if we do the surgery, but of course, again, to do the surgery, we need to catch the animal. And what you see here is the animal's being prepared for surgery, and we have to keep his gills flushed with fresh water. So that's why he has a hose in its mouth, to make sure that, we keep him oxygenated, because he's going to be out of the water at least 7 or 8 minutes. Wow. And we also have a protocol that if you reach 9 minutes and you're not done, wrap it up and let the animal go. Because sometimes it's moving, you lost something, and it's like 7 minutes and you're still not done. Then just, sew it up and let it go. If you don't have your act together, in the time frame, then the animal has, you got to release it to relieve stress.
How many would you do a night or per trip, or how does that work? Like you have one a night, is that successful, or is it like 3? I mean, is there like a goal that you want to achieve when you go out on these expeditions?
Well, it usually depends on the amount of tags we have. But for instance, on one of these last trips we tagged 4 of these sharks like this, catching them on a 7-day trip. So yeah, usually not even, let's say a shark a day could be a good average.
Okay, interesting.
The problem also is for the science, this is a very, very expensive procedure, First of all, to be able to get to Cocos or to Revillagigedo or to Galapagos, I mean, if you haven't been there, it's about 26 hours traveling in a big vessel, So the amount of fuel and the amount of food and the crew pay and everything, it's a tremendous amount of money to do one of these expeditions. And once you're there, one of these transmitters that you put into the sharks, if I don't get wrong, the cheapest one is about $250, $350, and that goes up to $700, depending on what it measures each shark, So if you want more data, then you're gonna put the $700 one, and if you got 10, it's just $7,000 just on the transmitters, And on top of that, for the scientists to be able to get the data, they need to put a receiver in the water, and that's another one, like large one, like this one. Then they leave it permanent. So they put it in areas they know the shark go and feed or breed or get clean or whatever. So they get the data there, and after a few years they need to recover that. So it's a work that doesn't last for one night. You put the shark back in the water and then you get the data. You need to wait for 2, 3, 4 years to get the receiver back to actually get the data from 4 years ago,
So you're making an investment here where you're not going to see the results for another 4 years. There are a lot of things that can happen in 4 years, right? I mean, Randall, how do you quantify with, well, this was valid 4 years ago, or you see the information from 4 years up to the point, right? But I mean, how do you see that data? I mean, that must be a huge challenge in how you apply it to science itself.
Right. Well, the good news is that there's lots of previous data that's already been generated. We're on the cutting edge side. And I've also learned that, the older I get, 1, 2, or 3 years isn't that long of a time anyway. And,
right.
And right now it's more of an issue of political will. And, the more data, the better, of course. The more data we have, the stronger our argument. But 1.2 is we already have the data to take action. We already know the basics of the movements of these animals. We already know their basic conservation needs. And conservation need number 1 for critically endangered hammerhead sharks is we got to stop killing them, period.
Yeah.
It's not a matter of sustainably fishing them or studying them anymore. No, we just have to stop killing so many of them. And the creation of these corridors where we know they're moving and where they shouldn't be fishing, is a priority, and we have the information to start moving forward with that. And that's where we need the political will. More information will be better, but we can't say we can't move until we get better information. No, we got the information we need, and that's the support we need now from the tourism industry, from the dive industry, from the conservation industry, because so far right now, conservation policy has been dictated by the fishery industry, and it ain't ever going to work that way.
Yeah, we see that in Ecuador a lot, in Galapagos. Unfortunately, they have a very large fishing fleet out of the port city of Manta, which ironically is named after a beautiful animal.
Yeah.
Yeah. But Luis Javier, when you are telling these stories, when you go back and you put the pictures together and you work on the editing of the video with your co-producers and things like that, have you noticed if the impact is greater from the pictures that are very graphic or the ones that show the beauty? How do you find the balance between that when you're trying to tell the story?
It's a story. You need to tell like the most important aspect of the whole story, you know, so that people can put the pieces together. One thing is doing a documentary as a video that at the end of this live will play a small trailer of the documentary we did in Cocos. And another thing, it's a story on photos, because on a video documentary, then you get the people talk, and then you see the movement, and then it's more realistic. And in a story of photos, then one image has to create the impact and has to communicate what actually you want to communicate, you know? For example, we have a picture right there of Manta with a scientist below. I went with another group of scientists to Revillagigedo in Mexico, with Mauricio Hoyos and Pelayos.
Mauricio, yeah.
Yes, they went doing two research. One is we were also putting receivers into the sharks, like internally, like Randall explained. But they also was getting tissues of a manta ray. You know, there's a specific dive site, a very, very important dive site for the manta rays. And dozens and dozens of manta rays go there every day. That's called El Boiler. And they go to get cleaned by this angelfish. This Aquarion angelfish is the largest cleaning fish there is in the world.
Yeah.
So the mantas get there, and the Clarion angelfish go and clean the mantas, you know. So divers from all over the world goes there to interact with the mantas. When I went the first time to Revillagigedo many years ago, it was 2 boats on that island, you know. Last time I went like 2 years ago, there was like 20 boats, you know, and there was calling each other to get a schedule, you know. My time to get in the water is from 8 in the morning to 9 in the morning. And then next one goes 9:10 to. So basically from 7 in the morning to 5 p.m. that the national park closed, there were divers every single minute in the water, because one group was going out and another group was going in there. And I haven't seen that in Revillagigedo until last time I went there. So what this scientist was actually doing is getting a flesh tissue of the manta ray. On the picture, you see how the scientist is below the ray. So what they do is they take a small flesh tissue, they go up into the surface, give it to their colleague, put it into a freezer, and what they actually do is they study the DNA of the manta ray to see the stress level. So they get sample tissues where there's no divers at all, and they get tissues when there's a lot of divers, so they can actually see if the animal is actually getting stress or not. So with this data, what they actually was trying to do is to create regulations on the schedules and the amount of people getting there. You know, it's like, you know, this is too much people. We need to actually get shorter amount of boat permits or shorter amount of schedule or time in the area, you know. So you not only see the beauty of the animal, you actually realize that there's a study and there's a work being done to actually protect the species, to protect the area and the benefit of the animal. So that's what we're trying to communicate with the story, you know. This is a manta ray. The photo that you see there, it's a manta in the boiler. She's swimming on top of lava formations where they're getting clean. And there's another picture where the scientist is actually below the manta, try to get a sample. So with one picture, you get the beauty of the animal in the environment, and another picture like this, you actually telling the story of how it is, you know. And so with pictures and with a nice article that everybody can understand, because also scientist language is very technical and it's meant for the scientist community.
Right.
So you need to use a language a way more light for everybody to understand without much technicism, but showing the importance of the work that they're doing, you know?
Yeah. You know, you hit a really good point, Luis Javier. A lot of people, they see, you know, tourism coming in is always a benefit because it takes jobs where people might be in a fishing community and they put them into tourism, creates local awareness. But then you have that argument that you just brought up here, which also reminds me of Galapagos, is when is too much, right? You know, when do you, okay, now it's not the fact that we are fishing out all the marine life out with industrial style fishing, long lining, trawling, etc. But the impact that we now as divers have by you know, putting another species, and as harmless as we might be, you know, we might think that we're just there to take a picture or shoot a video, but we are still in someone else's home at the same time. So Randall, do you guys do any other type of conclusions on the impact that tourism has on marine life, or is it just industrial fishing?
Oh no, well, the tourism can also have a huge impact, of course, especially if you have the type of tourists that aren't respecting the social distancing. You know, we've had occasions here where, you know, like we get pictures of people on the mainland of Costa Rica diving, and they take their pictures taken with turtles they catch underwater, and you know, and then most of the dive companies are aware of this, and you know, then everybody gangs up on them, you know, so they behave. But you know, definitely the tourism can have a big impact if they're not respectful. And at least in Cocos Island, there's a regulation where there can only be 60 divers a day on the island. That equals 3 dive boats, basically. So that's the full load in a single day. And then there's another rule where, you know, there's all these different dive sites, but there can never be 2 groups at a single dive site. So whenever you go diving to a place, you're the only group there, you know, unless there's, you know, some kind of clash, which usually doesn't happen. So, you know, they're pretty good about that, at least in Cocos Island. And the tour companies in Cocos Island are very, very strict also about the rules and everything. So in Cocos Island, we don't have that impact. But we have other sites on the mainland of Costa Rica where it's definitely an issue, like at the bull shark cleaning sites. There's no regulation for like how many people can go. So there can some days where it can be very crowded and it's like a parade down there. And definitely that can't be good for the sharks or for the people who want to see sharks.
I want to put an example that, especially in Cocos. In Cocos has been a few attacks from tiger sharks to divers. You know, this is very, very, very rare around the world. But sometimes you get these problematic animals. They got a special mood or character. They have one in Cocos. It's called Lagerta, which is a little bit problematic. And this discussion that I want both of your opinion. One is that people like Randall and NGOs are fighting to actually protect these areas, to actually protect these animals. And there was another group that say that because it's been a few attacks of this particular shark and it's been dangerous, they should actually kill it. Oof. So to continue. So it has no sense, you know, and I think Randall has a very straight opinion on that one, you know.
Right. Well, I would just like to add, for instance, yes, there was an attack. It was in November of 2018. You know, very serious. The woman died. You know, and after that attack, you know, a couple of weeks later, And then for the next 4 or 5 months, there were several incidents of a medium-sized, not a huge, but a medium-sized female, which is clearly identifiable. We have videos of the different incidents, and the incidents are the shark getting really, really close, not really attacking anybody, but we're getting really close and getting the divers nervous. She has a notch on the fin from which you can easily identify her, and people started calling the shark Lagertha. And
what does that mean? And
then they start,
or is that
Lagertha is that Viking warrior woman from that TV series Vikings.
From Vikings.
So they called her Lagertha because she gets really close and everything. And then there was another incident where a shark grabbed the diver by the tank, and everyone was like, "It's Lagertha." But okay, wait a minute, is it the same shark? And first of all, there's no evidence absolutely whatsoever that it's the same shark. There is a medium-sized shark that was screwing around there. She hasn't been recorded on video, or I don't have any evidence of her presence for the last year and a half. But anybody who sees a medium-sized female, it's Lagertha, and they post it on the websites and everything. And I look at the sharks, and I can identify her by looking at the fin, and it's like, you guys, this is just another medium-sized female shark. So number one, if we kill that female that's extremely curious, and there's no evidence that she's actually hurt anybody, why? We don't even know if she's the same problem shark. And then the second question is, why are we saving Cocos Island? So that divers can go safely dive without the presence of tiger sharks? If you want to go dive with sharks in a place like Cocos Island, you got to protect these sharks. You got to love them. You got to want them to be there. You got to respect them. And we're not saving Cocos Island for the dive industry. I mean, that's not my objective being there.
Right.
The dive industry is a means to save these sharks, to get out there, to get the information, and to make the argument to get the policy change. And we're really grateful for the dive industry for this. But, we're not here for the dive industry. We're here for the sharks.
Yeah. When the dive industry, if for some reason, something happens, the sharks will still be there when we're gone. That's the whole thing. As a matter of fact, I've heard this comment a few times over the last, I don't know, how many months has it been now since we're in lockdown, that a lot of these animals are probably getting a much well-needed break. The reefs, a little rehabilitation time for them. So that's nice to hear. Sharks have in general a bad reputation. People can blame it on Steven Spielberg's movie Jaws, which I think came out in '77, or just overall, fear of a predator in itself. But I think divers have come a long way with the help of research scientists, fun facts and things like that, and making them more of a lovable creature. Mateo, our 8-year-old, is fascinated with sharks. As a kid, that's the kid, and then what he wants to do more than anything in the world is to get in the water with them. I keep telling him he's got to wait till he's 10. But I think one of the things we've done is we've no longer made them our enemy, and that I think has helped a little bit as well. I don't know if you've seen that. Yeah, Luis Javier.
Yeah.
I think as storytellers, photographers, on-the-water videographers, whatever, we are ambassadors of the seas and their animals, And one thing that you will never see from my work personally, it will be a shark that is threatened, A lot of pictures that you see that they get viral and they post and everything, you get this bull shark or tiger shark with the mouth open, with their teeth out, and the camera very close. I think we as storytellers have the responsibility to avoid that kind of material. Of course, the shark will eat. If you get a fish and you're in a feeding dive, and then you put the fish into the shark will open the mouth and eat it. And they got teeth, it's a predator, of course. Yep. I think it's a responsibility from us not to publish that kind of material, because in order to actually make it viral, you want to have their teeth in the camera inside the animal. And if you think of it, the photographer actually had the camera almost inside the mouth and didn't get killed. So it's not that dangerous,
Right.
So I think our responsibility is, as a storyteller, either in photo or video, is to show their animals in the natural behavior. It's like in their natural ecosystem, in their natural world. But honestly, that's why I don't look Shark Week from Discovery Channel because honestly, what they sell is like these huge and dangerous shark get close to us, and I almost get killed. And why you show that? What is an amazing natural story of the animals? It's an amazing stories that you can tell that avoid that super dangerous animal. It's not true. I mean, if we as divers go into their world because we want to interact with them, it's because we love them, because we fascinate with the animals, not because we're gonna join in to be in danger and then go out and say, I almost died because I dealt with 12 hammerhead sharks. That's not true. Hammerhead sharks are super skittish. It's for example, in Cocos on our last expedition, we went there about 12, 13 days diving every day, 3 dives a day. And I have opportunity to see only one school of hammerheads like the ones you see in the pictures. One dive out of 12, 13 days diving, because unfortunately, those clouds and those pools of sharks are gone. They're gone, disappear. We killed them already. It's very hard for them to come back, We need to stop definitely for fishing them in order to bring them back. And because they're animals where the reproduction, it's very slow. It will take years to come back. It's not like from one year to another. We need to make work now in order for the years to come, for the next generations, for them to come. And one thing that I like to point on, that I love on the work of Randall, is his, how to say it, his work on scientists. They put it into the court, into the governments, and if it goes, cool, it went, But normally, it doesn't go well in the first time. It's been rejected and rejected. So what he does is he gets communities and they go and protest and they send letters and hundreds of letters into the government, into the president. And he actually confronts the government of Costa Rica many times in order to actually get things done, And that, for me, it's a fighter, If I know I need to protect sharks, and I go into the government and they say, no, you don't go here, we're still gonna fish. Then he gathers the people, they go into the street and they protest and they shout into the government, to the politics and everything. Yep. I think that is something we should do in every single country in the world, because we need to fight for our resources. Our lives depend on the health of the oceans more than anything. And it's incredible that in Costa Rica and the rest of the world don't treat sharks as wildlife. They treat it as a part of commercial fishing, and they're not.
We do. Thanks. Well, anyway, we're at the top of the hour. These conversations can usually just go on and on and on because they're super engaging. They're super interesting. I can tell both of you have a lot of passion when you guys are talking and describing things. But I'll leave it with you, Randall. Some final thoughts. You want to tell us about your organization, where someone can go and maybe look it up, what the website address is, and if they want to contribute, if they want to learn more, let us know.
Sure. Okay. Well, as Javier just mentioned, he just did the wrap up pretty well. Yeah. Sharks are wildlife, and use the hashtag sharks are wildlife. This is a campaign we're doing. We've been doing it for the last few months, and it's extremely important because countries from Mexico to Chile all have wildlife and biodiversity conservation laws. And these laws would be great if they were implemented. Unfortunately, they're not implemented because all these countries are saying, hey, sharks aren't wildlife, they're really fisheries. And they're protecting them through their ministries of agriculture, through their ministries of production, and not through their ministries of environment. That is something we must change. Because CITES, the Convention of Migratory Species, the Convention for the Trade of Endangered Species of Wildlife, they all need domestic wildlife conservation laws if they're going to work. But if we're going to allow the Inter-American Tropical Tuna Commission or OS Pesca, the Central American Fisheries Management Body. If we're going to let these groups of fishermen continue establishing the policy for the conservation of critically endangered species, we're going to lose. And that's the policy we got to change. Please join us. It's a battle to come up, but you know, we can do it. We've done it before.
Well, I thank both of you so much again for taking the time to share your experiences, share your knowledge in this topic. You know, it's about doing what we can with the resources that we have, and if it's about going out, taking a picture and hashtagging it, then go out and do it. But thank you again, both Randall and Luis Javier, for coming on board and for having this dialogue with us. It's been a pleasure. Very nice to meet you, Randall and Luis Javier.
All right, thank you.
Soon in Mexico. And I want to thank everyone that's joined us here on the live event. You can watch this recorded at a later time also. And we're going to leave you with a quick video, but the rest of us are going to say goodbye, be safe, and thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Retrieve 2 receivers that are there so that we can download the data from previously tagged sharks that were tagged at Cocos that we hope went to Las Imelas, so that we can document that connection between those seamounts and Cocos.
Ahora estamos promoviendo más áreas marinas protegidas, más grandes, queremos corredores biológicos, queremos manejo integrado. Y pues para todo eso necesitamos la información, y es lo que yo estoy haciendo ahora, tratando de recolectar toda la información posible sobre cómo puedo mejorar el manejo y la conservación de estos animales en un contexto no solo nacional, sino que también en un contexto regional y global.
Hay que proteger no solamente Isla del Coco, sino todos estos montes marinos que tienen una importancia ecológica muy alta para los ecosistemas y para la supervivencia de nuestros mares.
Este tipo de viajes en particular son diferentes a los demás porque son de ciencia ciudadana. Eso significa que tenemos gente común y corriente que nos ayuda a realizar la investigación. En este caso nos han ayudado a sacar receptores, a sacar biopsias, a sacar fotografías o videos. Que la gente sea partícipe es muy importante, porque aparte de que aprenden qué es lo que estamos haciendo, ellos ayudan a pasar toda esta información a la demás gente acerca de la importancia de los tiburones y del rol tan específico que tienen en los ecosistemas marinos.
El tiburón martillo lo que tiene es que ha sido selectivamente pescado por sus aletas. Las aletas pues son de las más caras, entonces pues sus definiciones más dramáticas por el sobrepeso.
Con nosotros.
Entonces es una especie que está harto reconocido, que es una de las especies que está en mayor peligro de extinción, se sigue pescando y la tendencia de su población sigue disminuyendo. Entonces realmente si no hacemos nada dramático ya para salvar esos tiburones, como dejar de matarlos, pues nada menos que eso nos va a salvar. Y una manera fácil de empezar es por prohibir totalmente su comercio internacional.
So if we can provide the government of Costa Rica more data to show that these sharks are going to these seamounts, then that's information that they can use to expand the protection of Cocos Island to encompass those seamounts, to give those sharks a chance of survival
Y lo que queremos hacer es proveer al gobierno de Costa Rica con la información que requiere para ampliar el área de protección social, de protección estricta alrededor de la isla del Coco. Actualmente tiene un radio de 12 millas donde no se puede pescar. Urgentemente necesitamos un área protegida de protección estricta alrededor de la isla del Coco, por lo menos de 50 o ojalá 100,000 kilómetros. Entre más grande, mejor. Las victorias, por pequeñas que sean, celébrenlas, porque es muy importante poder celebrar victorias. Y aunque tal vez es una victoria pequeña, un paso en la corte, un paso en la dirección correcta, o alguna persona que hizo algo lo correcto, lo que sea, pero celebren esas victorias, porque es importante saber que se puede lograr el cambio